बिहार में हम लोग इस प्रकार बनेगी, हम गोवत बंदी का कानून लाएंगे।
खाता है, हिंदू में नहीं खाता क्या भी?
3 पार्टनर सिर्फ नहीं है, 4 खिलाड़ी हैं। एक लालू जी, दूसरे नीतीश जी, तीसरे मैडम सोनिया जी और चौथा तांत्रिक।
अच्छा दिन अपने पास रख लीजिए।
1,06,000 करोड़ क्या चारे के लिए लगाया जाएगा क्या?
50 करोड़, 70 करोड़, 90 करोड़, कितना
रोजाना जंगल राज का सर
मिली। अरे मोदी जी ठीक से बोलो, नहीं तो नस फट जाएगा।
इन लोगों का तो काम ही है, इसलिए तो हमने नाम दे दिया कि बड़का झूठा पार्टी।
Well, the voters in Bihar have had their say. Judgment Day beckons. It's been an excruciatingly long month. The 5-phase Bihar election is now over. Good evening. Thanks very much for joining us on India Business Hour. What do the exit polls say? Well, they point to a cliffhanger. The poll of polls, which is the average of all the various exit polls that came out today, point to a dead heat. It's been a busy news day. The government has also unveiled a plan to breathe life into debt-ridden power distribution companies, just like CNBC TV 18 has been reporting. All of that and more coming up for you. Here are the headlines this Thursday evening. We told you first, and it is now official, the central government unveils its Uday plan to revive the ailing power Discoms. All existing loans will be converted into bonds. Individual states will have to take over 75% of the outstanding debt.
Polaris will soon have a new promoter. Virtusa Consulting enters into a definitive agreement to acquire a 53% stake in Polaris. Will also make an open offer to acquire an additional 26%.
Broad-based selling grips Dalal Street as the markets get nervous ahead of Judgment Day in Bihar. Stocks crack in late trade. The Nifty down below 8,000. The Sensex sheds nearly 250 points.
The Volkswagen crisis threatens to spell trouble for Motown. Government puts all cars under the lens. Also marks to do away with the current approval process and initiate on-road emission tests.
High other income helped Tata Steel beat profit estimates in Q2, but the steel major disappoints on almost all other counts. The European division posts an EBITDA loss of more than 200 crores.
It's a mixed bag for Cipla in the second quarter. The pharma major misses expectations on the profit front, but margins come in line with estimates.
In a bid to curb India's insatiable appetite for gold, Prime Minister Modi launches 3 schemes to monetize the yellow metal, also launches India's first gold coin.
It's actually pretty mind-blowing to see how e-commerce is progressing in this country.
Microsoft Satya Nadella lends a helping hand to startups in urban India, proposes to partner with 50 budding companies to find smart solutions to 50 cities. Well, as Bihar approaches Judgment Day, the bulls are getting nervous on the Dalal Street. The market's cracking in late trade today and the sell-off was broad-based. The Nifty down over 1%. It did slip below the psychologically crucial level of 8,000. The index even slipped below 7,950 at one point. The Sensex today lost nearly 250 points and is now moving closer to 26,000. So nervousness ahead of the exit polls and, of course, then the final result on Sunday. But here's the big story tonight. You heard it first on CNBC TV 18, and today it is official. The central government has decided to bring in what it claims is a new dawn for debt-trapped power Discoms. The existing debt burden will now be broken into 2 parts. State governments will take over 75% of the outstanding amount, which can subsequently be converted into state-backed bonds. The remaining 25% will remain with Discoms, and they also have the option of converting this debt into bonds. Anshu Sharma, who has been tracking this story for the last several weeks now, and of course has been right on top of it, spoke with the Power Minister Piyush Goyal to get us more details.
It's a historic day for the power sector with the approval of Uday, Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana by the Union Cabinet under the leadership of Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. We are seeing a clear roadmap to sort the problems of Discom out within the next between 2 and 3 years. Most of the states will become in profits in the black within the next 2 years. 2 or 3 states may take 1 year or 2 years more. We are very confident that this Uday Yojana, which ensures a resolution of the current crisis, which draws up a roadmap over the next 2 or 3 years, which will help to bring down the losses of the Discoms to zero and provide a hard budget constraint to ensure these Discoms never have the ability to park their losses outside the state's balance sheet, will in a holistic manner address this problem for posterity.
How will the bonds work for these states? In the past also we have seen a financial restructuring plan, but it never worked for the Discoms turnaround.
In the past, none of the schemes had provided a hard budget constraint, which is a first for this scheme. Uday also involves an agreement between the states, the Discoms and the Ministry of Power central government, where obligations and commitments of the states, the Discoms and the central government are well laid out in consultation and with the agreement of the states. It's a bottom-up approach, not a top-down approach. The states will be assisted and hand-holded to bring down the costs of power by improvements in their distribution and sub-transmission network, reducing the cost of power through coal rationalization, helping energy efficiency in the states, and finally bringing down their interest costs substantially. All of these measures, we believe, will reduce their losses to zero, and with the constraints on further bank lending and the compulsion to address the issue of losses through state budgets in the future, we are very confident that together the states and centre will ensure that in the future no state Discom is allowed to slide the way it has in the past. Thanks.
But what are the penalties and how capital
The penalties are inbuilt because the losses will have to be accounted for in the state budget. That itself will be a penalty which the states have all recognized. In fact, you'll be happy to know that it was some of the states which suggested this proposal that to be brought into the budget, into the cabinet approval, particularly considering the fact that, take the case of Rajasthan, Vasundhara Raje left behind a very strong power sector in 2008. 8 to 13, that Discoms in the state completely went out of control, berserk with added 55,000 losses. And in 2013, the people voted her back based on the poor performance of the earlier government and gave her 163 seats in the 200-seat legislature. But now she has inherited this huge problem. So the states have themselves suggested a stop to any ability of any government to play with the people's wealth.
What is the timeline for the tripartite agreement with the states,
this
and how many
is an
states are on
optional
board?
scheme. All states are welcome to join in. I would urge all states to look at it in the holistic fashion and see the great benefits that the central government is providing to the states. And I'm quite confident in the coming months, all the states will agree with us and come on board.
There you go, that's the minister highlighting the proposal to revive Discoms. Anshu Sharma joining us to talk a little more about that mammoth plan. Anshu, over to you.
That's right, as we have reported that state government will take up the 25% taken up from the will have coal swapping and measures like reducing losses of AT&C losses as well as transmission and distribution losses along with this interest reduction by this plan. So this will give a major push to the Discoms to turn around their efficiency level, and this will help meet the government's target of 24/7 power supply commitment. Back to you.
All right, Anshu, appreciate you joining us there with those details. But here are a bunch of reactions to the Discom debt plan, from coal secretary to distribution companies to bankers. We have all corners covered. A quick glimpse, and then we head to the Battle of Bihar.
We have been engaging with the state governments very intensively to get their view on what was being planned. And the good news is that most of the state governments, or almost all the state governments, are on board. They were also very keen and continue to be keen in terms of, should I use the term, rehabilitation of the Discoms. Most of the Discoms in these states were not in good shape. So this was welcomed by all the states when we had preliminary discussions with them. Very intensive discussions have been held by the Ministry of Power. I was associated with some of them, so I do recall some very intensive discussions with the state governments. As I said, the good news is that all the state governments, all the stakeholders are on board.
I feel that this is a very welcome happening that is taking place. We have been waiting for this decision for quite some time. Actually, you see, in Uttar Pradesh, we have got the debts of about 40,000 crores. So, out of that, if 75% or 100% goes away, we have made a very, very big strategy and very effective strategy to bring down our losses at a faster pace.
Overall, for the banking system and for the economy, it is a positive news. Hopefully, the stress on the Discoms will reduce, which in turn will reduce the stress on the power generators because they should be able to buy more power. You know that PLF is at 60%. There is some generation capacity which is on standby, and because of inability of Discoms to buy power, that generation capacity is not being put to use. And there are people in many states who don't get power for more than 8 hours, 6 hours or 12 hours.
Yeah.
And for the banking system, it affects the both ways. The state bank did not have a very high exposure to Discoms.
While we do have exposure to the power sector, we have no exposure whatsoever to state Discoms at the moment. So therefore, the bank is not directly impacted, but I am happy to hear that the package which was in the works for quite some time has been finalized. In fact, the health of the entire power sector is very much dependent upon the health of Discoms, and in particular state Discoms, because they are the ones, where eventually the money gets generated and paid back to the power producers.
So that is the Uday program that's been unveiled. Good news for the power sector, good news for the banking sector, and good news perhaps for the markets. It may take a little bit of the edge off the disappointment, if any, as far as the exit polls are concerned. And that is the big national story. If market watchers and political bigwigs were hoping to get a clear picture of which way Bihar is headed on Sunday, well, they're in for disappointment because 6 different exit polls throw up a very hung picture, or at least not a clear victory for either side, with neither the Mahagathbandhan or the NDA winning a comfortable majority, while the range pans from as high as 130 for the Nitish Lalu Grand Alliance on the higher band to 124 for the NDA alliance. But an average of the polls shows that it's quite even Stevens for the 2 main alliances slugging it out in the state. So that's the poll of polls for you. But I have to point out that we've got an outlier of a poll, and that is the Chanakya exit poll. Chanakya is giving it by a clear margin to the BJP. Chanakya believes that it will be the BJP-led alliance that will stake claim to the government in Bihar. We spoke with a power-packed panel a little while ago and started by asking them about the big policy story on power Discoms, and if that would in fact change sentiment as far as the market is concerned, which is getting increasingly nervous about the possibility of reforms taking a backseat if the verdict were not to go in favor of the BJP.
I think certainly is very positive for the street, and there were some aspirations, expectations that some reform had to take place for the Discoms, but because that was one sector which was clearly lagging, and definitely some amount of government reform was required. As I understand, the scheme is quite path-breaking, and overnight you would have an improvement in the financial position of the Discoms, and I think that will go a long way in not only improving the power industry per se, but also the banking industry, where a lot of these loans may have been classified as NPAs or, affecting the liquidity of the system over there. So I think it's a step in the right direction. Implementation, of course, is extremely important. And I'm still not very clear as to, once you transfer the debt, what happens to the present operating losses which the Discoms are still making, whether some kind of a scheme or plan has been put in place to ensure that in future at least the losses do not pile up. Once you have this one-time cleanup of the balance sheet, it should not be that in 2-3 years you find yourself in the same position.
Well, absolutely right there. But let me get a quick reaction in from Arvind Virmani. Arvind Virmani, we've seen this happen in the past as well. The government is making a fresh attempt now to try and revive Discoms, moving debt from the Discom balance sheet onto the state government balance sheet. Your quick comments on what you've heard from the Power Minister and whether you believe that this will really address the problem that's plagued the sector.
Yeah, so let me start from the macro aspect, which is the debt. The NPAs and the whole banking sector debt gives rise to this what we call a balance sheet recession. Though, of course, right now it's not a recession, but I think that problem had to be addressed. And what is encouraging is that the government is systematically going through various major sectors to try and solve the immediate problem so as to kind of end the debt problem as far as the banking and new loans are concerned. That's very important. So taking up, let's say, the electricity sector, the coal sector, and various others which have been stuck, including infrastructure, basic infrastructure sectors, etc. So in each of these, I have seen over the last 18 months or so, the government is systematically trying to unwind, so to say, the bad debt problem so that new lending can begin. So that is the macro aspect, which is good. The second part, of course, is the power sector. As you said, one has been through many power sector reforms, and the only difference I would say is that often in the past what I have seen is a scheme used to be announced. Usually the Planning Commission was involved in it, and then there was less active interest from the government. So here, given that the Planning Commission, so to say, does not exist, the coal minister, and he also has the power ministry. So one is this relative integration of the fuel supply and the electricity generation. That will make some difference. And second is that given this, the objectives of this government and this minister, who as far as I can see is one of the better ministers of the government, given his interest and his continuing interest will be very important in making sure that some of those things go through. On your program only I've heard, as far as the efficiency and other things are concerned, there's already been discussions. Let's say it was the UP person you had on your show just now. So from my perspective, at having seen these various programs, I think the interest and the continuing interest of the minister and the government will play an important role.
Yes, Dr. Virmani, we're just coming back to you. Let me get Vikash Khebani of Edelweiss into the discussion. Vikash, at the moment, the Discom loans are not bad loans. They are still standard loans in the books of banks. At the moment, do you think there is, as a stock market player, you will, play any of these stocks, banks or power companies? It's only when the Discom debt clears and they start bidding for fresh power that the power companies will benefit. At the moment, is any stock benefited?
I think, it is not about at the moment Discom loans are bad, but I think there's a market perception. If the health of Discoms are not good, market participants view them differently at a risky proposition. So this, I think, at once takes away the whole perception of that, loan to a secure loan. And I think that's a very, very positive move. And I think, in my opinion, this plan addresses in comprehensive manner, which was need of the hour. Power sector was, I think, sort of disliked for long, because I think you had generation reforms happening, but you didn't have any distribution reforms happening, and because of that, power sector was becoming unattractive and unviable. I think this addresses at one go, and I think one most attractive feature I find in the plan is that making Discom losses a part of the fiscal deficit. I think that will bring in some discipline politically also, in terms of making sure the losses come down, free power is not given. If it is given, there is a burden on the state exchequer, not on the banks. So far, banks were being used. So
I completely take the point that this is a much needed reform, and it's very good that the government has bitten the bullet. But I'm just asking you, as an investor, will you buy anything? Is it tomorrow, if only this reforms were announced and the Bihar exit polls were not there, let us assume only this was announced, is it going to make a damn difference to the market?
Big difference. According to me, big difference. The whole power sector is set to go under, it's a very...
So you may buy power stocks?
Absolutely. absolutely, no doubt about it. I mean, in my opinion, NTPC will be biggest beneficiary.
Okay. Through the day today, it was very, very tentative. Will they come out and do a cabinet briefing? Won't they come out and do a cabinet briefing? And I think, you can take your cues from the fact that the exit poll at this point in time, I don't know, because this doesn't reflect what the pre-polls were suggesting. It doesn't reflect what people have been reporting from the ground, at least at this point in time. It's a very, very slim gain that the exit polls seem to be giving JDU and Nitish Kumar. Let me get AK Bhattacharya in on this conversation. AKB, what do you make of the polls? For the benefit of our viewers who are just joining in, let me recap what the polls are saying. The India Today Cicero exit poll gives the Grand Alliance 111 to 123, while it gives the NDA 113 to 127. The India TV C Voter exit poll gives the Grand Alliance 112 to 131, and it gives the NDA 101 to 121. NewsX CNX gives the Grand Alliance 130 to 140. I would say this has been the most generous. The Grand Alliance gets 90 to 100 and others about 13 to 23. And the News Nation exit poll gives the Grand Alliance between 120 and 124. And ABP Nielsen also gives the Grand Alliance 130. What do you make of the polls, AKB?
Well, if you do a poll of polls, so to say, out of the 5 polls that you listed, 3 of them give a clear edge to the JDU alliance, Mahagathbandhan alliance. Only 2 of these polls actually indicate that the BJP alliance perhaps is ahead. So I would say, given today's exit polls results, the JDU alliance has a slight edge, and not the BJP alliance, which was the earlier view that the BJP alliance perhaps will go home. But it's very clear that the polls indicate a slight edge for the JDU, and this obviously, as many of the panelists were saying, this has some implications for the government's reforms agenda. I mean, my sense is that one of the reasons why the government decided to go all out with the Discom reform program to be announced today itself is a part of a very, very strategically crafted management program. You are essentially trying to divert attention to its reformist credentials. Yesterday you had the bankruptcy code draft. Today you have got the Discom thing. So I think the BJP in-house maybe assessment will also be that out of the 5 polls, you have got a negative signal on 3. So do you need to revisit your old development agenda, reform agenda, and so that the government gets down to the task of what it knows best?
Deepan Mehta, straight to you. Do you believe that some of the edge of the defeat that is expected of the NDA, if one goes by what the exit polls seem to suggest at this point in time, will be blunted by the fact that we've seen this reform measure, which is this big-ticket revival plan for Discoms, being unveiled just a couple of hours before?
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it will take away tomorrow's discussion away from the exit polls to what this new scheme has to offer and who the major beneficiaries are, and about the rollout and about what the various other gaps are and how they'll be looked into. And you will have a lot of companies, bureaucrats maybe come out and speak about this scheme. So a lot of the attention will get shifted away from the exit polls to this particular development. In any case, I think the exit polls are not showing any decisive trend. So markets would like to wait for Monday to react to exactly what the outcome is of the Bihar polls. But my gut feeling is that I think the Bihar election is not that important for the street. I think the focus is going to be more on what next as far as reforms are concerned. And we have an earnings season underway, which is not playing out as well. Yeah. And those concerns also keep on cropping up from time to time. So.
AKB, if I can just take that point forward, because just in our previous conversation, you were also talking about how the case of Bihar has been overstated on its impact as far as the economy and the reform agenda is concerned. The government has been saying very clearly that forget legislative action. In fact, the finance minister telling me, let's not obsess or focus entirely on the GST and legislative action. Let's talk about executive action. They've promised reviewing conditionalities as far as FDI is concerned across sectors where liberalization has already taken place. They're also looking at the possibility of bringing things as money bills to try and ensure the passage in Parliament. Do you believe that we can expect an acceleration of the sort of measures that we've seen already being taken, bankruptcy code being taken now to the winter session of Parliament, in all probability, reform, the Discom revival plan being unveiled today?
Well, given the exit poll trends today, my sense is that the government's job in Parliament to get its legislative agenda through will be more difficult. Therefore, I am expecting this government to focus more on what it can achieve through some executive action, and that will certainly include the Discom power reform program. Because not much has to be cleared, not much of this program has to be cleared at the Lok Sabha or the Rajya Sabha. What it needs is some sort of tariff reform and state level reforms. So I think the central leadership is more or less now reconciled to the fact that getting bills passed in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha in this winter session will become a little more difficult given the political mood that has been created by the kind of divisive campaigns that saw from both sides. So I think the markets will definitely be influenced to some extent by that, but I think they will be more influenced by the shift in the government strategy if it does take place. And if it doesn't take place, then I think the markets will respond, because markets are looking forward to major reforms that are waiting to happen and that have been promised for quite some time. So Bihar elections will indirectly impact the market sentiment to the extent that getting legislative bills passed in Parliament will become more difficult. This is my assessment.
But AKB, that's exactly what I was wanting to ask you. The poll arithmetic of Bihar does not impact the composition or the recomposition of the Rajya Sabha in April 2016. That's when a third of the Rajya Sabha members change. That is not going to be impacted by Bihar, right? So there, the NDA does make some headway.
Yeah, I understand. But in politics, it's not about numbers here. Politics is about the mood that you have generated through this kind of campaign. Now, I do not see the Congress or any other opposition political parties in Parliament to agree to the kind of consensus politics that is required to get GST passed or any other legislative bills passed. I think the kind of aggressive divisive campaigning that have gone around in Bihar elections in the last 1 month, you don't see the opposition parties and the BJP coming together and say, hey, listen, there are these things that have to be done and let's go ahead. The numbers don't change, but the mood has got a little more resolute, and they have taken firm positions. And I don't see BJP leadership either showing signs of building some sort of consensus politics to resolve this deadlock of sorts. Yep. So I think the numbers remain the same, but I think the political mood has definitely got a little more vitiated, where the kind of campaigns that we saw, the opposition, the Congress will obviously be reinvigorated. The kind of tolerance and intolerance debate that has preceded and is going to continue, in my view, given the mood of the nation right now, I don't see a winter session to be very productive in terms of legislative agenda being passed by the government.
Well, that is the analysis of what the Bihar result, whether it's the BJP or it's Nitish Kumar and Nitish alliance, what it could mean in terms of executive action, legislative action, and an era really of consensus politics, which has escaped us at least up until now. Coming up next on India Business Hour, Polaris will soon have a new promoter. Details of the big deal of the day when we return.
It's actually pretty mind-blowing to see how e-commerce is progressing in this country.
Microsoft Satya Nadella lends a helping hand to startups in urban India. We'll get you all the details when we return.